Welcome to the Nudon JusticeWeb webinar. My name is Cadina. I'm one of the project implementers here at Nudon, and today we're going to be covering JusticeWeb's account management features. When we log into JustWare, within Justice, the administrative tools, we have a JusticeWeb link, and inside there we're able to manage which users can access, can log into JusticeWeb. There are several different ways to do this, and we're going to walk through all of these today. Let's go to JustWare and click on the JusticeWeb link underneath the administrative tools. Starting from the top, there are some key features that we will talk about that will allow us to manage our users' accounts. Within the request queue, people can request a login, and administrators can utilize this tool to approve those logins. Underneath user account management, all of the users' logins will be stored inside here, and we can update passwords, change usernames, or even delete records as we need to. Next, within the request management, we're able to design and develop the pages that allow us to request these different accounts, so that externally a user could request this, and a JusticeWare administrator would simply have to do a few steps to approve these different accounts that come in from the JusticeWeb website. Finally, the server configuration. Inside the server configuration section of JustWare, we're able to go in and configure what case types, what case involvement types can be able to access and view data within the JustWare system. Inside JusticeWeb, I'm sorry about that. So let's go back and start within our user account management section. As you can see, I've already created a user called Tony Stark. Tony Stark is got access to the JusticeWeb account because he has been linked to a name record and he has a login. I'm going to log in real quickly as Tony Stark so you can simply see what it looks like when you're logged in. And his password. As Tony Stark logs in, you can see he's been allowed as a defendant to view different case types. If we had turned this feature off, he would not see any information here and it would be blank. Let's walk through some of the steps of how we would do these things. So there's two ways that we can add an account into JustWare that will allow us to access JusticeWeb. The first way is going to be through the JusticeWeb agency added process. This process is very simple, and any administrator can do this to provide access to those users that would log into JusticeWeb. Simply click on the green plus sign and search for a name record. I've set a name record up that we'll use as an example. Iron Man is going to be our guinea pig today, and we see that Iron Man's name exists. If the name didn't exist, we would go through the standard JustWare process of creating a name record for this user. We'll involve this name and give him a username, as well as a password. If we wanted this to be a temporary password, we could check this password expired, and this would force the user when they log in to retype their password to something new. At this point we won't do that, but we could do that at a later time, and then we would make them active. Alright, let's go log in as Iron Man and see what it looks like on the Justice website. We're going to go down to our web page and log in to JusticeWeb. I'm going to sign out as Tony Stark and sign in as Iron Man. As you can see, Iron Man doesn't see anything. The biggest reason is Iron Man doesn't actually have any cases that he's involved on. But as he becomes involved on cases, we would then see those queues similar to what we saw with Tony Stark. From my point of view, this is one of the most basic and simplest ways that we can add users into JustWare, which then would allow them to access the JusticeWeb website. Another simple way is by creating a request page that would allow a user, whether it be a case-involved person, so it will allow any case-involved person to request access to view that data within their cases. We'll walk through the process at a later point of how to set this up, but I'll show you simply how it works. Now I've set this up to automatically approve these different users. Before we start this, let's go ahead and delete Ironman so we can see how this works. So I'm going to take this Ironman account out of the JustWare account management page, and this will allow me to create a new Ironman record. And we'll go ahead and do that and link Ironman to our Ironman name record. So first I will create a username. A password. An email address. And then some basic user information. This will be the information that's needed for me to create a link between the Ironman name record and the JusticeWeb login account. So we have to be careful to make sure we type in all the correct information as it's stored within the database. If the user mistypes it, it would actually create a new name record. We could later manage it and link those name records together, but it's very useful if these users that are creating these accounts type them exactly as they need to. So man is his last name, Iron is the first name, the date of birth, and then I've created a couple numbers that will allow me to go in and link to the Ironman name record. One thing to remember with a social security number that I learned the hard way was we have to make sure that we type them exactly as the number is stored within the database, and that includes the dashes. So this might be an area where we would make a note next to the title or something and say format it this way. And then the driver's license number. I actually want to link it to the right number. It would have created a different record. So if we want to verify this real quick, which obviously these different users may not have that ability to verify, we could search for the name record real quick to make sure we're typing it in exactly as it needs to be. So as we can see, we've got the information on the name record, and hopefully we've matched those few key points that we need to create this link. JusticeWeb is doing a level 1 duplicate name detection, and that's the similar name detection that's found within the utilities of JustWare. And so if we were to look at the duplicate name detection tool underneath utilities, it would be doing the same process. So it's doing it at the front end versus after the fact, searching for those names and finding duplicates and making the link. So we have to have a few key points of data that will allow us to make that link. So finally, we verified that this is the Ironman name record, and I'm going to go ahead and submit this name. And as I will explain throughout this webinar, this name has been set to auto-approve. And what that means is the JustWare administrator has very little interaction with this process. The JusticeWeb user can request the name. If it doesn't find the name, it'll create a new name, and at that point, they will then have access to JusticeWeb. In previous webinars, there's been discussions on how to set it up so that you could have it also go out and send an email notification and stuff. We won't cover that today, but that would be the process that would be recommended, is to set up an email notification on those account requests so that the end user would know, hey, my account's been set up. Let's go into JustWare and look what it looks like within the JusticeWeb administrative section. So in the account management, I'm going to refresh my screen, and we can see that Ironman's been set up, and he's got a username and his password should be there. If I needed to, once again, I could reset it and I could mark it for temporary, and then the user would be able to log in again and recreate their own password. I'm going to do another search again on Ironman because I want to show that it actually linked the Ironman name record into here, and we'll show down the road as we create some other examples how if we had not put in all this information, it would have created a separate name, and we would see that in our search here. So we have only one name record, and that name record is linked to this Ironman account. So now if I go and log in as Ironman, once again we're going to see that Ironman has no cases. And he should have no cases because he's not involved on actually any cases within the database. So, in simple, I'm just going to summarize real quickly what we went over. JustWare allows us to create a JusticeWeb user that can access the website, and inside that website they're then able to go in and see all the cases that they're involved on. We'll look at Tony Stark real quick once again to remember how it looks like if they actually are involved on a case. This process can be done manually, as we saw, or it can be done automatically through the website. And either way is fine for however your agency chooses to do it. It simply gets the name and login in there and creates the ability to see those cases. We'll go in to the next stage of this process, and we're actually going to make it so you can see what would happen within the request queue. And so I'm going to change a simple setting where we had it set to be auto approved, and we're going to change that now to set it to be where it puts it into this queue. So even though Ironman can fill out the form on the website, we would go into a queue, and the JustWare administrator would then have to go in and approve that name before the account is linked and Ironman could log in and see any cases that he's involved on. In order to do that, this is the setting is underneath the request management, and request management is where we create these JusticeWeb requests. And so we're going to go and look at the page that I've created, and we're going to talk in more detail a little bit farther down the road about how to create the full page, but we'll look at just this one quick setting where we will change the status of the page to allow us to put it into the queue. So I have this account request page here that is allowing me to create a new account. As you can see, I have other pages that also help configure the JusticeWeb website and allow users to make different requests to JustWare. We won't talk about these pages today as they've been talked about in later or in earlier webinars. On this one, we simply want to change the default queue status from approved to queued. Now, any of your statuses that are in there, you can choose. So you could actually default reject every request that came in. I wouldn't recommend that because you would never get anybody able to log into JustWare. If you don't have any of these set up, it's under the snapping called request status here within this request management section. And you would simply go click on the green plus sign, add your description and your code, and choose your request type. And we are going to choose, you could have as many or as few as you want, so that way they can trigger different things. But this one is simply, I've set it up to have an approve, a reject, an approved, a queued, and a reject. And as you can see, I've just named them that basic description. Sorry, we're going to go back to this page, and I've dropped this down to queued. And we're going to go ahead and save this information, and I'll show you the process now of how this slightly changes what we did from before. Once again, I'm going to delete Ironman's record by simply clicking on the red minus sign. I'll hit yes and then save. So Ironman could no longer log into JusticeWeb. And it will then give me some information on whether I've forgotten that username or password. But we now are going to request this username, a new Ironman username, and log in. fill out this basic information once again. Being careful to make sure I type it exactly as it is within the database. Otherwise, it will create a new name record. Once again, the dashes are very critical for this part, because otherwise that dash alone will create a difference between how the numbers are stored within the database and not allow you, it'll actually link it to a new name record versus having it linked to the Iron Man name record already within the system. Okay, so we've successfully submitted it. We could print this if we wanted to, but we'll go into JustWare once again and look at how this has slightly changed our process. And instead of looking straight to the user account management, because it's not set to auto approve, it won't go right into there. It'll in fact go into this request queue. And I don't know if you've seen this in the past webinars, but we'll just briefly describe it. Within the request queue, we have request types, which this is requesting a new account. It has a status of queued. If it were that it was having an error, you would actually see an error, and that would also fall into this queue, so you could fix something or tell the person to retype it in correctly. We don't see a name yet, so if we wanted to, we could actually link this to a name record and approve it. But because I know I've typed in the information correctly, it'll go and automatically make that link to Iron Man. But if I wanted to, I could manually make that link. And then there's some other information about case title. And lastly, we have payload. And as you can see, it says on demand. Not very descriptive, but when you click on it, it then shows us the information of the user who is requesting the account. At this point, we can see the username, the username's email, or the user's email, and the basic information that we've asked them to type in, which is critical if we need to find that name record for us to make that link, if we were doing this the manual way. So we look at the payload, and then we see that it's Iron Man, and we know that we want Iron Man to be approved, so we'll go ahead and set that status to approved. As you can see, we also have the reject option, and this is where I would recommend setting up those notifications based upon approval or rejection to let the user know, hey, I've been approved or I have been rejected. So we're going to approve Iron Man, and because we have access to JustWare, we're going to go and watch this user account management queue and wait to see when Iron Man gets pushed over into the now to being an active account. So I'm going to refresh my screen. This could take up to about a minute. The queue manager that's working in the background is going in and looking at all the requests and doing its job that it's supposed to, and so it has a cycle of how often it goes in and out and looks for those things. And so hopefully we won't get the full minute. Great, we have Iron Man here. Now let's see if I actually typed Iron Man's name in right. I'm going to do a searching again, and hopefully we only have one name record, which we do. So I feel confident that we are linked to the right person, and we'll go ahead and sign in as Iron Man. And once again, we'll probably not see any name or any cases for Iron Man. All right. We have simply covered the different ways that you can go and manage creating a user account and how to go in and configure who their name record that it's linked to by simply going and doing a search here. We can give them a different username if we wanted to change their username. We could also reset their password or create a new password for them. We can expire that password by giving it a new password, and we say, hey, the next time you log in, this will force you to change your password. This box, once you check it and save it, and then they're forced to reset their password, will actually go false, so it'll uncheck it after they've changed their password. And we can delete and create accounts manually. We can automate that process for those JusticeWeb account users by creating an account request page. And therefore we can either have them automatically do it, or we can push them to a queue, and inside that queue, let's go look at that real quick, we could then approve or reject those people requesting accounts. And if we do it automatically, it'll automatically go in there, create the account, And because it's doing it automatically, if that name record wasn't typed the exact way, it would also create a new name record. So something to be aware of as a JusticeWeb administrator. If somebody's logging in and they know they have cases that they're attached to, but they've mistyped that information and it creates a new name record, that new name is not attached to those existing cases. So you'd want to go in as an administrator and merge those names together. Next part we want to cover here in our webinar is how to create that user account page. So the account request page. And that is done under the request management, which is creating the different pages that will allow for different types of requests to come in. As we click on it, the first snap-in we're going to see is these request type configurations and our request. So in here we've got the different requests that can happen, and like most JustWare setups, we have a code we need to create for it, and all of these samples I've created them with a test code. We have the description, and this is one you can type in yourself, and then we have a code type, which is a drop-down list of the different types of pages that we could create. We're going to simply stick with the account request page that we're going to create. And this account request page is pretty unique. It creates this icon here up at the top for us, and that icon we can click on the button and we can then request an account. So if we didn't have this page, you would not see this hyperlink. We then describe which server it's supposed to be pointing to. So if we had multiple JusticeWeb servers that were designed for different purposes, we could point this page to a different one, and so we could make different login queues that would be specific to each server. And then we can set the default queued status. I'm going to change it back to approved. And those would be the things. It's as simple as every other JustWare snap-in. You simply click on the green plus, give the information that you need. Because we don't need a second account request page, I won't create it. We'd fill that all out, and then we jump down to this next section of page ordering. This snap-in allows us to create the pages, or allow us to set the order of the different pages that we've created. Now, you're probably wondering where we create this page, and that is on the page configuration section, right next to the request type configuration. Because I've already created a page for this, we'll see the different page information, but it's just as simple as every other one. We can set the page, we can choose which already pre-built page we want to use. If we were to select that one, it would fill in the title of that page, and then we could decide whether or not this is a page that will allow us to submit. And that's just simply activating that submit button. So if we needed them to walk through multiple pages before we click on submit, we could do that by creating these different pages. We're going to keep it very simple for this demo and just have the one page. So as you can see, I have the account request 2, which is a second version of the account request that I've created. I also have one for new accounts, and it does the same thing. I just created a second one for this demo. We'll go ahead and leave this the way it is for right now, but we're going to link it to a new one. We're going to create an account request 3 or whatever we want to call it here under page configuration. So as we see page configuration, it has a list of all of the different pages we've already created. We could delete these past pages, so if we didn't need the old account page because we've made modifications to it, we could simply remove it. We're going to click on this one, the one that we're existing using, and we're going to look at it real quickly. And then in our next phase, we'll go and actually recreate this so you can see the whole process. But some information that's useful. We've made a last name field, a first name field, a date of birth field, a social security number field, and a driver's license number field. The purpose for that was to try to create a request page that would also link back to useful information within JustWare that would be able to do that level 1 search and make sure we don't have a duplicate name. So it does that search, finds Iron Man, links this name record to my JusticeWeb login account. One of the things I want you to notice is I don't have a username field or the password fields. And as well, I don't have the email fields. Those fields come over by default when creating an account request page. So So when we choose this account request type, we need to have a page that links to that request type that does not contain that information. That one tripped me up a couple times when I was first creating, because I thought I would need to create those username and password fields, and I kept getting confused. So I want you guys to understand exactly what I'm saying. So when we go and create this account, this field here, 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 and here are by default set into the page for us. They'll be at the top of the page. No matter what you choose the page ordering to be, you will always have these 4 fields right there. And then whatever else we put into it, since we've chosen these to be on page 1 and not click through the next pages, we would then fill in the last name, first name, date of birth, social, and driver's license like we set up in our page configuration. So those will fall right below those 4 values that are required for an account page. And so simply having that information allows us to go in and do these pieces. Let's go ahead and create a new page for us that will do a similar function. And we're going to go look at it and click on a new page. Key to having an account request is having it be a name page. So when I click on that, it automatically pops me over to field properties, and it automatically puts in a last name. A name page has to have a last name so that it either creates a new name, and what's required on a new name in JustWare? Simply the last name, or it'll then, so we have to have a last name, and because of that, if we add some other fields that are critical, that we can do that duplicate name detection, the level 1 search, it'll then link it to an existing name record. So we'll go through that whole process. In order to add those fields, we'll go to this snapping called Add a Field. In fact, actually, let's leave it this way for 1 second. We're going to go ahead and save our new page. Let's give it a name that makes a little more sense. And we'll save it with simply asking for a last name. And we'll change here on our request type configuration under the page ordering the page type to be new account request. So it's going to create a new account, and we'll save that. Now we'll go back to JusticeWeb and look at how it changes our form. It dynamically does that for us. We really didn't have to do a lot of work. We didn't have to go and clear any cache or anything. And we now have the ability to type in a new user account. Now remember, we've set this to auto request, so we're not approving anything as an administrator. It's going to go through, look for the name. If it doesn't find the name, it's going to create a new name record. Give him a password. Verify that password. Email. And then a last name. And I'm going to submit it. Oh, we already have an Iron Man in the system. We'll give him Iron Man 2. I forgot to delete that record, but it's okay. Because I hope we're all aware that this isn't enough information to make the link. So it's not going to try to link this name, this JusticeWeb user account to the previous Iron Man. It's actually going to make a new Iron Man name record with simply the man information as the last name. So let's go ahead and submit that request. And then we're going to go back into JustWare. We'll go ahead and look at, closed us out of JusticeWeb. Look at our users account management section. We have Iron Man 2 already in there. That worked pretty quickly. And I'm going to do a name search on just man. I'm going to see quite a bit of names with just the name of man. And scroll down, and let's just see if we can see the man record. It's not Iron Man. 2 separate names have been created, and they will only be linked to the accounts they're in. Now, since he's there, though, we could actually sign in as this Iron Man 2. And we would see that I also am not linked to any cases. Now, because Ironman 1 didn't have any cases, it's really not that big of a deal. But if I did have cases I was involved on, this might be a problem and might be something that an administrator would want to go and make sure the name is linked to the right name record so I could see the cases that I'm actually involved on. So let's go back to our page configuration. It's under the request management section, and we will go into the fields. So under page configuration, add a field. Let's select the page that we're adding it to. New account request. So that was under pages. You have to click on it if you want to see it. Otherwise, it gave you the option to create a new page, but we don't want a new page. We just simply want to fill in this page with enough information that will link Ironman to the Ironman name record. So we've got a first name. That seems fairly useful. Got a date of birth. We've got some numbers. Now, interestingly, numbers comes up with this warning for us. No field has been associated to numbers. I'm going to drag in another number because I want a date of birth, I want a social security number, and I want a driver's license number. That's enough for us to match on. I could have several more, but that would be simple enough for us to match on. And I'm going to change the properties of these fields. And I'm going to link these fields under Field Properties, Snap-in. We can rename it. Let's rename this one to be our social security number. I'll keep it abbreviated. And I'm going to link that to the social security number here. And so now we could have it linked to that. Next, I'm going to create a driver's license number. And I'm going to make that link under field types. And this shows me all my different name numbers that are available for me to make the link with. I have all my custom numbers I can make a link with. The miscellaneous number, FBI number, whatever is in my database, I could make those links. And so I was going to use the driver's license number and we'll save. By simply saving it, we've updated that information. We can now click on the account request and it'll give us the full amount of information that we've got there. Before we submit this, let's go ahead and go back to our user account management section. And let's delete these two Ironman accounts. And we'll just create a third Ironman account or a new Ironman account again and link it to Ironman. I think I'd be faster at typing this having done it so many times. Key is to have these markings. If we had made this driver's license number have any special masks, it too would also need to have the exact formatting for a driver's license number. Since we don't have to stress about that part. We just need to make sure we keep this part in the proper formatting. So, one of the things while we wait for the iron, let's see if it came in fast. While we wait, we could maybe make that information, since social security numbers are unique, a little bit more helpful for the end user. Let's go select our page, new account request. Let's go to our fields of social security number properties. Something like that might be simple enough. We could also have added, as you see in the different fields, there's some labels. So we could have put a label above it to say, hey, social security number needs to be formatted in a certain way. It is required. Anything simple to help the user know, hey, this is the formatting we're looking for. And as you can see, simply saving it once again updates this page for us and gives us the values that we would want. So let's go and look if our account has been created. for Iron Man, and it has. So we don't need to log in again. We know Iron Man's there. Let's maybe do a name search for Iron Man just to prove that it linked it right to the person again. We've only got one Iron Man name record, and that is, in short, the simplest way to create a user request page. So let's summarize that real quick. We've created this new account request page. It looks for some basic information that would create the link between the end user that is trying to create a login to JusticeWeb and the user that's connected in the database. And we've created the link that page to this page ordering, which is linked to the account request. Account requests are unique because it adds this link up here on the top bar of the website, account request. It does that for us. Account requests are also unique because we don't need to add the username, password, verify password, or email fields into this for us. It just does it for us automatically. And those are the basics of creating a page that would allow us to request a login. Finally, what I want to talk about is limiting the different user, limiting the cases that a case-involved person could see. And so depending upon the involvement type that I'm on, right now we have, so let's go back if I went too fast. Under server configuration is where we would limit what involvement types are seen on JusticeWeb. So if I'm a defendant, which Tony Stark was, I was able to see cases as a defendant. We could limit this to only attorneys or only judges or only defendants. And if I log in then and I had 4 cases, and let's say one of them I was my own attorney, and the other one, so I was the attorney, and the other 3 I was defendant. If defendant was the only thing that could see cases, we would only see defendant cases. Let's show an example of that and log in real quickly as Tony Stark. So as Tony Stark, we have 3 cases that I'm involved on. Mr. Stark is. And all of them, he is the defendant on those cases. So let's go here and make it so defendants do not have access to see a case. So even though I know Tony Stark can log in, I have now limited the involvement type, which then limits what type of cases, or the cases that I see, based upon how I'm involved on that case. Now I'm the defendant on all of these. Let's go ahead and sign out, sign back in. And we can see that I have no access to see any of my cases based upon that. So underneath server configuration is where we limit the access based upon involvement type to what cases we could see. And it's as simple as checking a box. So we could let all users see cases or only defense attorneys, and so on and so on. Finally, the very last thing is not related to active accounts within JusticeWeb, but the public pay option, which allows users, or it allows people to make a payment on a case. And those cases, you simply, and hopefully this was already talked about in a previous webinar, but we're just showing how you can limit what case type or what statuses or what obligations public payment can make a payment on. So if we didn't want juvenile cases to be paid on, we would come in here and uncheck all of our juvenile cases. And then this would only let these types of cases be paid through the public payment portal of JusticeWeb. Similarly, if we didn't want warrants to be able to pay via our public payment portal, we would then limit warrants from paying. So we want those guys to come into the office and actually make a payment or come to court and do whatever they need to do. And lastly, if we had specific obligations that we did not want them to pay on, this would limit the case from being paid. So if we said, hey, if they have a warrant fee, they need to come into the office and pay on their case. So we could set that up, and then this would make that case, even if it had the other obligations, if it had a warrant fee on it, that whole case cannot be paid through the public payment option and would only be allowed to go into the office and make the payment. So JusticeWeb would deny access to view that case. So this is another way to limit what case they're able to see, but it's through the public payment option. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch the previous webinars that Jeremy Gledhill's done on how to set up your public payments, because they're great videos that go through the information, but this, we just simply wanted to walk through how to limit what people can see. And then we could also create a message here for them. So when they go to look for their case and they see that they know they have a ticket number, they know they have a last name, they go to type in that information, it shows them no case. We could say, hey, your case is not available to be paid on public pay. Please come into the office or contact us at blah, 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 blah. And it's one of those note fields, so you have quite a bit of information you could type, and that would pop up onto the person's screen if they were trying to make that payment. I hope you guys have had a good time with me. I enjoyed this webinar session. I would like, if you have any questions, please contact support and the account management group. They are very glad to help you guys get through these different processes that you're doing. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.